Chris, I'm telling you, The Blob is the best scary movie of the 80s.
Shh, this is the best part.
AJ, I told you to be careful eating that Jell-O. You spilled it all over the place. And would you turn off that strobe light? You know that's just for parties.
Let's go back to the show! The Halloween 80s! Woo! Welcome to Halloween 80s! And today, we're gonna answer your questions about the 80s. The best 80s movies, though. Awesome. But this one is special.
I wonder where you're going with this.
This is a special Halloween one. There's going to be a part 1 and a part 2. But the part 1, we're going to talk about Nightmare on Elm Street.
Not it.
Nightmare on Elm Street, the original one. And we're going to talk about
That's also Nightmare on Elm Street.
the reboot one. And we're also going to talk about the Blob.
All right, we're kind of jumping the gun.
What?
Okay. Thank you for joining us once again. Episode number 4, The Heavenly 80s.
It's crazy.
Oh, it's so popular. We've overtaken YouTube. We're the hottest thing on YouTube. We're up to how many subscribers?
28.
And how many people watched our first video?
Like 150 views.
150.
That's crazy.
I heard that there's billboards all over town, posters.
Who would do
promoting.
that? Who did that? Who would possibly do that?
Yes, and we've started to get feedback, right? Comments, and what's one of the things that people were asking for?
There's so many people are asking us to make Halloween videos, and that person is one person.
At least one person has asked.
So much, Daddy.
Yes, that's right. For a Halloween-themed episode. And so we listened to you, and we're not just bringing you one Halloween-themed episodes. We're bringing you 2 Halloween episodes. There's a 2-part special this week and next, talking about some scary movies.
And we're going to talk about, is the original one better or the reboot one better?
Right. So you saw at the beginning of the show there, we were watching The Blob, and I wasn't kidding. This is my very favorite horror movie of the 80s.
Agree.
I think it holds up so well. The effects are...
So scary.
It is super scary. It is... The effects for the 80s are really good.
They're better.
Yeah.
Look at now. So
Yeah, I'd love to see what they would do with this today. So not that many people remember The Blob, I think, from 1988. I saw it in the movie theater. I was 10 years old. And a lot of people don't realize that was a reboot. Yes, from a movie that came out in 1958, which was terrible. You and me watched it last week.
Blah, 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 blah. The Blob is so scary. Blah, 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 blah.
There's a lot of talking, I think is what you're trying to say. And the effects were not much better than what we did. Basically the same thing, some Jell-O. But yeah, that movie with Steve McQueen, brutally boring. I guess you have to grade it on a curve because it's so old. But even for the time, I don't know that was a very good movie. I've seen good movies from back then. And that wasn't one of them. Yeah, so back then, reboots, I don't think people even knew the word reboots. But now, everything's getting rebooted. And a lot of the great horror movies of the 80s have been brought back. And we're going to talk about a couple this week and a couple next week.
Friday the 13th got rebooted. Nightmare on Elm Street got rebooted. Child's Play got rebooted. A great movie. And also, I said that already.
No, you didn't. You said Child's Play, Friday 13th.
Elm Street.
And what are we missing?
Halloween.
Halloween, of course, Halloween.
Halloween.
Yeah, so we're gonna save that for next week, the Halloween special. So before we get into this, why don't we tell people how they could support the show?
Okay.
Are you gonna be able to do it with this thing on?
I do it this hand. Okay, everybody. Subscribe this video. Hit that like button. And don't forget, guys, most important thing. Do the ding dong noise.
Yes.
Wait, not done.
Okay, I think that means turn on notifications, right?
We mean do the ding dong noise.
Do the ding now. Yeah, subscribe. Please tell your friends, like the video, and turn on notifications.
And give us ideas in the videos.
Yes.
And don't forget,
comments.
I made a new TikTok channel, The Henley 80s, and then says Chris. That's my my TikTok channel.
Oh, look at that.
And we there is 80 stuff, and that's it.
I don't know anything about TikTok, so that's all you. But I do know about horror movies and reboots, and I gotta say, I didn't like horror movies for a long, long time, and then you kind of got me into horror movies. I don't know if that makes me a terrible daddy, but we've been watching a whole lot of horror movies, some of which you probably shouldn't be watching, but I use the fast-forward button a lot on a lot of scenes. And we also watch some of the cleaned-up versions if they're available on TV, so I'm not that bad a dad.
How dare you didn't like make me watch horror movies.
I used to get like scared of horror movies. I didn't like the feeling of like being grossed out and kind of scared. But now I've come to really like it, especially this time of year, Halloween. That's all we've been on like a crazy marathon of horror movies. We watched all the Friday 13th in like
one day.
In a couple of days. We watched 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Well, have you seen that? We saw the reboot. The reboot.
Yeah, we saw the reboot like yesterday, I think.
Yeah, and a bunch of the Halloween movies. And Nightmare on Elm Street, and a bunch of stuff.
The original is great.
Okay, so let's start talking about Nightmare on Elm Street. The original Wes Craven movie came out in 1984.
I forgot about that movie, but okay, it's really
yes,
good.
that was like the first one you really watched, and I think got you really into horror movies was the original Nightmare on Elm Street. And I remember you were watching it.
Friday 13th reboot.
Is that right? But I remember you watching Nightmare on Elm Street last year, and then I sat down with you to watch some of it. And it was so awesome. I was blown away by how great it was.
Scratches, worms, cells, all green.
So that movie's 36 years old.
Still great.
And we watched it again the other night. And still totally holds up. The effects looks awesome. It's super scary. And one thing that you don't see a lot in horror movies, I think, the acting is actually not that bad. For a horror movie, acting is pretty good.
Yeah.
And you like the characters, which is also... Nancy, who is in a few of the movies, and it comes back for my favorite of the Nightmare series, which is Wes Craven's New Nightmare, where she actually plays the actress. Actress plays herself, and that one we could talk about that another day. But that movie was awesome. Actually, that was a '90s movie, so we can't talk about it. But go watch it anyway. Really great movie.
Great movie though. Watch it.
Yes, it was the first meta movie. It was about the actors in the movie playing themselves, and they're kind of haunted by the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise.
Like draw that's like Freddy.
Yeah,
he, like, draw.
That was Robert Englund playing Robert Englund, the guy who plays Freddy. But anyway, the first movie stars Johnny Depp, who went on to be really famous. You don't know who he is. He's the guy who got sucked into the bed and then spit out. Remember?
That was a great.
He's like a super famous
That
actor.
was the best kill. That was a really cool kill.
That was an amazing kill, and they really spared no expense. Like, these are not cheap looking kills. The kills look really amazing.
Freddy's death is terrible, but
yes, those are terrible. But this is the first kill in the movie with the girl. I think her name was Tina, right? And she's like the first one.
She was in the air kind of, and like you could see her like her like her belly scratched.
It rips up, right? And she's thrown all over the room, and she's...
And blood everywhere.
oh, man, it is something.
That was
yeah,
good.
and I think they did that by actually spinning the room around. They created a room, and they turned it around and around, and she fell all over the place. So, as an effect, it looks amazing. So, this movie holds up so well. Really scary, really awesome.
It scared me, bro.
Yeah.
I saw it 2 times, and it still scares me.
Then, all those years later, 2010, they re-release, or they come out the reboot, Nightmare on Elm Street. Not a whole lot different about this one. Right? What did you think about this one?
The effects are a little bit better. Well,
I gotta fix this. Go on.
Okay,
I just had a nightmare.
The effects, they look more realistic a little bit. And, he looks very much scarier, actually. He's like skinnier a little bit. And he tells the storyline very well, a little bit.
Yeah, so in a lot of these reboots, that's one of the things that I think they do, is that they try to give the backstory to these famous horror villains, whether it's Michael Myers or Jason or Freddy. That's one of the things that they all seem to have in common, is that they try to dig deeper into what makes these villains tick. And they definitely do that in Nightmare on Elm Street. They give you more of the story of Fred Krueger, who was a janitor in like a day camp for little kids. And it's really creepy, the stuff that was going on with him and the kids. And they tell the story in more detail about how the parents all got together and killed him.
It's a long story.
Yeah. I liked this movie when it came out. I remember we watched it.
It's not bad. It's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's scary. The effects are pretty good. He looks really creepy because they made him. He looks less cartoony and more like just a guy who was burned up really bad. He's not as sort of silly and funny. He's a lot more serious. But I don't think it's better than the original. I don't think they do enough to make it better. It's just kind of the same story, updated. I don't think that the characters are as likable as in the first one. Sure. I think you liked Glenn, who was Johnny Depp, and you liked Nancy, obviously, and even the other ones that were in the movie. They were kind of likable. The guy who was put in the prison, remember? The guy who was in jail, who in the first one, they thought he killed himself when he hanged himself,
yeah,
but it was actually...
Freddy got the blanket and choke him.
Yeah, that was really scary.
Yeah.
And the father's really good in the first one. Even the mother. The characters in the first one are pretty good.
The ending was just...
The ending stinks. Yeah.
Yeah, that ending was really bad.
It is, such a great horror movie, such a lousy ending. It's really disappointing. Nancy just kind of wants Freddy to go away and says oh, I don't believe in you anymore. You're not going to control my dreams. And then he just sort of jumps and falls through the floor. And then at the end, you see the mom get sucked through the door while she's waving bye to Nancy. That effect is the worst looking effect in the whole movie. So, yeah, it ends badly. The end of the new one, they again do the thing with the mom, but she's standing by the mirror, remember? And
that was better.
That looks really good.
He got stabbed in the eyes and
through the mirror. That was really cool.
Yeah, that was violent.
Really violent, yeah, and really good. So, what's the consensus? Reboot or original? Which is better?
I think original.
Original, I agree. I think Nightmare on Elm Street, the original, is the winner.
So good. It's scary.
Yes.
Look at the scratching wounds, his long arms.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He cuts his own fingers off, remember?
Oh, my gosh.
He's smiling while he cuts his fingers off. And he cuts himself and worms come out. Yeah, oh, my God, that's really horrifying. Yeah, and remember the phone with the tongue in it? Yeah, that was really cool. Yeah,
okay,
great movie.
So you should watch the Nightmare on Elm Street original.
Watch them both. The reboot's not bad, but if you can only watch one, watch the original.
If you have time, if you can watch other Nightmare on Elm Street.
Not all of them.
Why not?
Because are you recommending that they watch Freddy's Dead?
Oh, not Freddy's Dead though. Never.
Part 4 is pretty bad too. I was watching some clips earlier.
What was that?
And it was just cheap. That's where the guy's doing the karate in the studio and he's fighting Invisible Freddy. He's doing absolutely nothing. and he's just getting beat up. It's awful. It's terrible. But it's not as bad as.
But
Five. Wes Craven's New Nightmare came after that, and that's really good.
I've never.
That was really kind of the first reboot of the series, sort of. But it wasn't really a reboot. It was like this different universe. But it was done really well.
It wasn't really.
That was 1994, I think. Yeah, good movie. All right. Now let's talk about Child's Play. That movie came out. The original came out in 1988, featuring Chucky. Everybody's come to know the original Chucky, and it was rebooted just last year in 2019. We saw that on video. The original one, I don't think I saw it in the movie theater. We've seen it on video since then. I think it's fine. I think it's good. I think people maybe sort of romanticize how good it was. I didn't love it. I don't think it's like the greatest movie.
There was some cool things, like when he at the ending shot his bipods. It was all burned up. Mm-hmm. That was pretty cool.
And he looked pretty cool, especially for the time, for a movie that's 32 years old.
Yeah, that is pretty impressive.
The effects look pretty good. You see Chucky running around the house, and I think they used animatronic dummy. And in some cases, they had a person. I think, but it looked, and there's some stop motion. It looks pretty good, even all these years later. Then they made a whole bunch of Chucky movies. Some of them are horrendous, how bad they were.
Yeah.
I think people love Chucky just because he was kind of iconic, really kind of the cute doll that was evil and would go on these killing sprees. But as a movie, it's not as good as, the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, or the Friday the 13th movies, or the Halloween movies. Some are better than others. Some were pretty, even ones that they did late in the series, some of them were at least they were very original. But I never loved the Chucky movies, the Child's Play movies. I think they're just okay. Until the reboot. Yes.
The reboot is awesome. It's so perfect. But the storyline is different, though.
Completely different.
So, this guy's building Chucky, but he makes Chucky a bad guy and then kills himself.
Yeah, so in the original, Chucky is possessed with the soul of some kind of criminal, right? So it's an actual bad guy who is in the body of this doll, right? And it's through some kind of voodoo magic or something like that. In the reboot, it's just the doll. It's just a doll that has sort of a programming glitch that turns off all the safety protocols so he can do a lot of really dangerous stuff. But it's not alive. It's not anything like that. It's just essentially a toy gone really, really bad. And there seems to be messages there about, having too much electronics in your life and how kind of intrusive it could be. But wow, some of the stuff in this movie is really...
a cat or something?
Killed a cat. He puts that guy's head in the lawnmowers. Or no,
he got his skin off and put it on the watermelon.
Yes, he scalped him, takes his face off of this guy and puts it on a watermelon. And it's all basically by accident. There's a kind of a programming glitch.
And you like the song?
Yeah. Is it?
I am your buddy something.
Yeah, it's you're my buddy. And he looks a lot different too. I don't know if he's cute or he's not cute. He's sort of weirder looking. I think
he has big eyes.
They kind of made him intentionally a little bit
he's
ugly.
He's like the new Teddy Bear.
Yeah, Teddy Ruxpin. Oh, we should have brought him. He's the scariest thing. He's got the creepy eyes. He's all electronic. He's kind of like an Alexa, right? So he can be programmed to help you do anything.
Do electric stuff with his fingers.
Yeah, and the company that made him has got their hands in everything, and that's kind of one of the themes in the movie too. But it gets really scary as this thing kind of gets obsessed with the boy whose name is Andy. And it just goes way too far. Pretty horrific. There's
try to kill a mom.
Do you remember? Yeah. Do you remember the scene in the Walmart? They called it something else in the movie, where there's the guy who's dressed as a giant teddy bear or something.
And kills him inside it.
Killed him inside the giant suit. Yeah.
Jeez, Chucky's really violent.
Yeah, and then there's a scene with the mom in the car, the older lady.
Oh yeah.
And
she tries to drive a car, but the Chucky controls the car, I think.
Yeah. So, in my opinion, the reboot much better than the original.
Gosh.
Yeah. I think people would disagree with that just because they're partial to the original one and they like the original Chucky. And that's kind of not fair to it. I mean, if you look at them as two separate movies, and some people don't even think the new one should have been made. But if you just look at them each on their merit, the new one's a better movie.
Doesn't matter like it has to be like original or something. Like matter how scary it is, like basically.
Yeah, and I think it's well, I guess we can't compare it to how scared people were in 1988, but in 2000 for a 2019 movie, that movie is really, really scary.
Wow, that scared me so much.
All right, so we agree.
So the reboot is better. You should watch it. It's great.
Yes. So, Nightmare on Elm Street, original better than the reboot. Child's Play, reboot better than the original. Agreed. Next week, we're going to be talking about two more movies. Friday 13th, original came out, I think, in 1980 or 81.
No, 80.
80? Okay, boss. You will know. And then it was rebooted in 2009. And then we're going to be talking about Halloween, featuring Michael Myers. Now, this one we're going to have to bend the rules a little bit because the first one is actually not an 80s movie.
No,
it came out
70s.
1978, the year I was born. And then the reboot, people might think that we're going to be talking about the 2018 movie, but that is not. No, that's the one that came out a couple years ago, where it has the original Laurie Strode, Jamie Lee Curtis, but she's like older now. That was awesome, but it's not really a reboot.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a sequel.
Laurie's still there. She should be like somewhere else.
It's more of a sequel, but there was a reboot back in 2007 made by Rob Zombie. No, don't give anything away. We'll talk about that one, that reboot,
and
next week.
We'll talk about 5/13, which I have a project of.
Well, maybe we can have it in time for next week. You can have your project ready to discuss.
I'm working on it very much.
Okay. All right. Until then.
Subscribe to this video. Hit that like button.
Don't tell me. Tell them.
And hit the bell.
All right.
Why not done? Woo! And see you later.
Next time. The